Today's topic is the Enhanced Law Enforcement Integrity Law, which took effect in Colorado on June 19th, 2020. I'll cover some of the major parts of this law and its impact on police officers. I'm Steve Serbalik, and I'm a panel attorney with ASCOPS in Arizona. This is a topic summary and not legal advice. And due to the sheer size of the reform bill, I can't come close to covering all of the changes and effects. So I'm just going to cover some highlights. The Colorado law requires all law enforcement agencies in the state to wear body cameras, mandates that the footage be released within 21 days after the agency receives a complaint of misconduct in most circumstances, and includes sanctions and penalties for officers who fail to activate a body camera, among other provisions. The law also enhances reporting to the state regarding uses of force, officer resignations, and civilian contacts, including documenting all unannounced entries into a residence with or without a warrant. The law also creates a statewide database regarding an officer's untruthfulness, training deficiencies, and terminations for cause. A state board will be able to revoke the certification for an officer who fails to complete required peace officer training after giving the officer 30 days to complete the training. Additionally, the state now must permanently revoke a peace officer certification if the officer is found civilly liable for an unlawful use of force or fails to intervene in a criminal or civil unlawful use of force. Note that this mandatory revocation would apply even if an agency's internal review found the use of force in policy. The state now also prohibits the use of pepper spray or tear gas during crowd control incidents prior to issuing an order to disperse in a sufficient manner to be heard and complied with. So, even if faced with a crowd that turned violent and destructive, officers would need to give orders to disperse sufficient to be heard and complied with before using certain tools that have proven effective in de-escalating criminal behavior. The law also drastically shifts civil liability for police officers. It creates a state law claim that will allow an individual to sue the police if they allege a constitutional right was violated, even if that right wasn't clearly established by the courts, and awards attorney's fees and court costs for plaintiffs who win, which will serve as a strong incentive for plaintiffs to sue on new grounds, and for officers to face civil judgments against them, even if the officers were following their agency's training. I previously made a video about qualified immunity, linked in the description down below and available on this card above. So check that one out for why qualified immunity makes sense and why this change in Colorado is a terrible idea. Also, if the police officer's employer determines that the officer did not act upon a good faith and reasonable belief that the enforcement action was lawful, the peace officer is now personally liable. They need to pay it out of their own pocket and shall not be indemnified by their employer, and would be individually liable for up to $25,000 or 5% of the total judgment, whichever is less. As far as I can tell, that personal liability for officers acting in the course and scope of their employment is now unique to Colorado. Additionally, officers are required to intervene when another officer is using unlawful physical force and requires the intervening officer to file a report regarding the incident. If an officer fails to intervene, the state must decertify the officer, and the failure to intervene is also a Class 1 misdemeanor. Officers also must identify themselves after every stop and requires officers to have a legal basis for every contact that they make. Officers must provide any person stopped with identifying information concerning the officer in the form of a business card, and that information must be provided to each person without being asked. These are just some of the provisions of the new law. Some take effect immediately, while others take effect as late as 2023. Taken together, these are extremely hostile and discouraging to law enforcement officers, as they make a difficult job, often involving split-second decisions, even more difficult. Thankfully, here in Arizona, organizations like ASCOPS work with members of the legislature and local leaders to discuss why some of these supposed reforms fail common sense analysis, and why they would discourage good people from joining law enforcement. If you have any other questions or comments about the changes in Colorado, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And subscribe for more law enforcement lessons. Videos come out every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Arizona time. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Cerbalic. Stay safe out there.